And we're live with the Burst My Bubble podcast. Say hello, Mom.
Hi, everyone.
So I took a walk around the neighborhood and I went to Dunkin' Donuts and my hands were grimy. Then I took a shower and I started catastrophizing the same old catastrophe. Basically, do you think there's anything to worry about? Can I contract HIV from grimy hands?
The only thing you can contract out there today is COVID.
Right, coronavirus. Actually, in Dunkin' Donuts when I was getting my coffee, there was this guy who was dressed in the exact same attire as me, camouflage pants and a black tank top. And we struck up a discussion, and I said, "Oh, you're wearing a cool attire." He was talking to me about work. I was talking to him about coronavirus. It was just a friendly interaction. Nothing real. I mean, it was just like a random acquaintance. He said he might have seen me walking around the neighborhood. And it goes to show, when you're agoraphobic and socially anxious and don't put yourself out in public, you're not going to meet anybody. But if you go into the coffee shop and you strike up a conversation with somebody wearing the same attire, you could potentially meet a friend.
You can meet people everywhere. Unfortunately, today, with everyone wearing masks, and that's what they recommend we do, everywhere we go, wear a mask. It's kind of hard to talk through the mask, but people are doing it. And sometimes I think it's a conversation piece about what kind of mask you have, what color mask you have. I mean, it's a conversation piece.
Oh, yeah. The N95, isn't that the good one?
That's the one that's very hard to breathe in. It really, really makes it tough to breathe. But in hospital settings, it's absolutely needed.
Yeah.
So it's a hot one. I don't know. Do you remember last year being as hot as this year? It seems hotter. I don't know. Maybe it's because
I definitely can't recall, but it seems like these past few days are definitely the dog days of summer. It's been really hot.
And it's only July.
Right, it's in the 90s. I wonder if August is going to be worse. Do you blame this on climate change / global warming, or do you think this is just naturally done?
I think it's a natural occurrence. I mean, do I think there's some global warming? Yes, I do, because we do emit, these gases. But I think people are trying to be more careful. I think, companies are trying to be more careful. I think as human beings, we want to try to preserve our planet. I think in general, most people try.
I think people that say climate change doesn't exist are simply ignorant. The scientists say it exists. It's almost a fact.
Well, you see the caps melting. You see them melting, and then you see the waters. You see the poor polar bears struggling to find a place to get on the ice. So it definitely exists.
Right. I mean, it's not even a question. It exists, and you look at the overpopulation. You look at all the automobiles and factories and pollution. It's no question that we should be infecting the environment. But the question is it America's responsibility to police the world and take care of this problem? Or, because obviously there are countries that won't want to, do anything about it,
We can't. We can only do what we can do, and we can suggest. We can't police the world. We just don't have that ability to do that. However, I think most people want to see people like to live in the moment and live and can tend to be a little selfish. However, if you give them some scientific proof, sometimes it might jar their conscience into doing the right thing by, trying to use less big planes, and if they can use a hybrid car, or they can save carpool. There's many things we can do as people to help our planet.
Many politicians have the interest of the economy in mind. They're concerned about making money for America. They're not concerned about it's kind of really weird if you think about it. Like the environment, the world we live in, like the natural environment we live in, they're not concerned about. But but money's insignificant if the planet we live in is unlivable. So it's kind of.
And there's where I said that, and it's all politicians. I hate to say, they have their agenda, which is getting into office, and they do what's good for them at the moment. But if we live, all people do it. It's not just politicians. All people live in the moment, and they do what's good for them at the moment. Just like cigarette smoking. How many people out there still cigarette smoke? You think that's not polluting our air? Of course it is.
Why do you think, I mean, especially in the year 2020, with all the knowledge there is about cigarettes, why do you think people still smoke? It seems like
it's an addiction.
No, I know. Why do people begin with? Do you think it's the peer pressure in high school and college?
Absolutely. It's cool. They think it's cool. Or some people smoke because they're nervous. They think, they put something in, they go into a party and they're nervous and they put a cigarette in their hand. But once you get that nicotine addiction, it's very, very, very. And there's so much stress in the world right now. Everybody, look, you're drinking a coffee. Does it have caffeine in it?
Yeah.
So you're addicted to caffeine? You need that caffeinated fix.
That's a very valid point. Why did I start drinking coffee? Because I mean, I'm on a lot of medication. So, I started drinking coffee because the medication made me very fatigued. And
well, you say why do people smoke? A lot of young people, especially young girls, there's a body image in when they're young teenagers.
I mean, actually, I did actually start drinking coffee sort of because I thought it was cool. In college, there was this video game called Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, and there was this character who would drink his coffee, and he was like, his character name was Godot, and I thought the character was really cool. So when I was in my younger college years, I always liked to sit at my college table with a cup of coffee in front of me because I thought it made me look cool. So in a way, I kind of was doing the cool thing with the coffee.
And a lot of people, and there's specific coffees for specific, it sounds so stupid, but there is specific coffees for a specific group of people that you're trying to impress. It sounds stupid, but yes.
I know like tough masculine guys have to drink their coffee black. I mean, yeah. I usually like it with a little bit of like milk or cream in it because sometimes the black coffee can be too bitter.
Well, the stupid thing too is even people that drink alcohol and go out to a bar, like for a guy to drink an apple martini, which probably tastes good. I've never tasted one, but it's a little green drink with a little olive in it, and it looks very fruity. So
I mean, obviously, with the mega regimen of psychiatric medication I'm on, I really can't drink because it would probably be. I mean, but I mean, when I did, like back in 2008, I would drink wine coolers, and the other guys used to make fun of me for it because they thought it was like very, like not masculine, and I kind of wish somebody would like kind of have given me the heads up that it doesn't look cool drinking wine coolers and these fruity drinks.
What we've got to realize is who cares what other people think?
No, I know you say who cares what other people think, but sometimes when you're in an environment, you kind of have to. I mean, if you go into like a restaurant and you start wearing like flowery clothing, you're gonna stand. You're gonna stand out. You're gonna look absurd. And sometimes you have to kind of, if you're in a bar and you're socializing, you kind of have to drink a beer. I mean, drink.
Well, here's a for instance, and you'll chuckle at this. Your audience will chuckle at this too. I heard on a show where they said that profiles for dating apps, guys that take pictures holding cats turns off females. And it seems so strange because I would think that somebody that loves animals would seem sensitive. But if a guy is holding a cat, they're deemed to the feminine perception as being weak and feminine.
Well, yeah, that's a very valid point. Women can sense the weak passiveness and feminineness. And like years ago, I mean, back when I was living in the place of the house with you, a lot of my pictures, I looked weak, I looked submissive. They call it a soy boy. I put on soy face, unaware, people like look at you as kind of being like a beta, like a weak person. And I was wondering why I wasn't meeting women women like people that can provide for them, that look tough. I mean, not all women, obviously there are differences and not everybody is the same. But, you know, I was presenting myself as a little weak boy. And, you know, that doesn't attract people, you know?
Well, I don't even know. I think people like, not all people, again, we're generalizing. I think people like to feel somebody is self-confident and in control. I think that if we project ourselves as being passive and not assertive, that there's a deficit. So people tend to find that their own, perhaps.
That was the problem when I was living in there. I was starved of power and control, and unfortunately, I mean, everybody needs a little bit of power and control, and that was probably the reason I found validation in running. You need a little bit of purpose. You need a little power and control in your life, because if you don't, it's not good for your mental health. You know, and women. I mean, a lot of women like men that are in control. You know.
Well, you don't want to. Okay, and that can be a problem too, because it can go over the other way. There are a lot of men that are power control freaks that want to override someone else's. It's got to be it's not really power and control. It's self-confidence and your ability to be in control and direct your own life, not others. Where people that are control freaks over others, or control over others, or try to exert their power over others.
Right, you joked. I mean, maybe you've joked with me that you were a little bit of a control freak, and
for myself.
I know, and even when it came to me, you said it in the car on the way to the psychiatrist. I mean, you might not be doing it maliciously, but you've expressed this to me in the past, and you know, I mean, sometimes you need to
control you. I don't want to control you. I want you to learn how to assert and control yourself. Everybody has to be able to deal with themselves. But if you give people the ability to direct you because you're not directing your own life, that's bad. You have to be able to take on life's choices. Otherwise, you don't grow up. That's a very important part for kids. Learning to be self-confident. And unfortunately, there are things that happen to us in our lives that can jeopardize our self-confidence.
Right. Obviously, my dependency on you made me very unsure of myself, and obviously getting bullied too. So I felt defective, agoraphobic, and I kind of liked the comfort of mommy. So I kind of didn't have self-confidence for a number of reasons. And it you know, unfortunately, I spent most of my teenage years.
Okay. Yeah, and that can happen to people. Let's go back to addiction. Let's go back to addiction to caffeine, addiction to alcohol. I think people tend to find in addiction a comfort. Overeating is an addiction. I think people tend to find comfort in addiction because it somehow blurs what they need to do for themselves.
They say they say eating disorders, you know, such as overeating or anorexia, is a power and control kind of thing. You can't control anything else in your life, so you want to control your weight.
But that's in a lot of disorders, Andrew. That's in a lot of disorders that people find, you know, that decision that they make, and they think, like smoking. Let's go back to smoking. They think that smoking is going to make them look the image that they want to present. But then they get addicted to the nicotine, and then they're like, I can't quit this. And they don't realize how that takes control of them.
Oh, okay. And actually, speaking of, you know, things that you think make you look cool, part of the reason I started posting on social media and, you know, was because I was trying to meet people, and I was trying to present myself in a sensational kind of way, kind of like an SOS for socialization. And, you know, it was kind of myself. I mean, I'm talking about myself too much, but in a way, I was kind of trying to present this character and look cool on social media. So
but a lot of people do. A lot of people do.
Oh, let's talk about social media. So I think a lot of people on social media present themselves in the perfect way. It's a distorted image of how people really are.
that's what Facebook is, and I shouldn't, say
Yeah,
that.
so when I say social media, I was referring to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram,
Yeah,
YouTube.
I mean, all of those platforms present a fantasy. It's not real. All of them. The people everything that's on there is fake. They put the rose-colored, flowered-colored, best of everything. That's not the way life is. Life is messy.
You see a snapshot of them at their best moments in their life.
Exactly. Reality is, and I know, and I have friends and people that, they want to live in that kind of, every person that perhaps they talk to or meet on these sites, and they want to believe that they're real and that everything they're presenting is real. I'm talking about people that I know.
I'm not talking about getting duped by cyberbullies. I'm more talking about, getting distorted images about friends, family, and celebrities.
But that's why the social platform of media, to me, is unhealthy. I think getting out into the real world and interacting is the healthiest way to form relationships and friendships. That's my personal opinion.
Right, and that's what my psychiatrist is as well. Socialization in the real world is the key to recovery, but unfortunately, for whatever reason,
and COVID.
Please let me finish what I'm saying. For whatever reason, I was, socially isolated, agoraphobic. I felt comfortable around mommy. There was kind of like a dependency and a comfortability, so I kind of wanted to be safe and sound around mommy. And I lost a lot of time socially isolated. And, I was living in an internet fantasy land, but actually social media can be toxic to people that fantasize and have delusions, because you'll see, posts of a celebrity and you'll think, is this person talking to me? And in a way they are talking to you. They're talking to everyone, but you'll think it's a message directed right at you,
Yeah, I mean,
Well, like for example, like they'll make a post saying, "Oh, I drank a large coffee today." I'm like, did they drink the large coffee because I drank a large coffee? And you start to think the message is directed at you, but you got to realize that's fantasy. It's predicate logic. Just because a celebrity drank a large coffee doesn't mean, you know what I mean? Or like say I saw a celebrity in a camouflage dress and a black tank top. I'm like, I was wearing a camouflage, pants and a black tank top. It's predicate logic, and social media can be toxic for people that fantasize like me.
That's true. Okay, so let's now move on to some other topics.
Okay.
What other topics would you like to discuss? We've discussed addictions, we've discussed smoking, we've discussed the planet. Why don't we talk about ways for young people today to find happiness and peace in the arena of the way.
So speaking of finding happiness and peace, I think, with the coronavirus, I've been, for the most part, socially isolated alone here. And, I need purpose. And I think maybe a job or volunteering might be a good, and I also wanted to, and I know you told me to call up local comedy clubs because, I think of myself as being very funny and, trying to, calling comedy clubs, asking when you're going to open up again and trying to develop my stand-up act because it was successful at the Psychosocial Clubhouse.
So people out there that are finding themselves alone and isolated, speak to your strengths. What are your strengths? What are you good at? What makes people like you? And
so what do you like to do to entertain yourself during COVID? Because unfortunately, we have a lot of people are alone. I mean, a lot of people are home all day long, and they need to do something to entertain themselves. What are you doing to?
I've heard from neighbors that they do coloring. They get these coloring books and they do coloring. I've also heard people, Zoom and podcasts are fun. Talking, swimming is
that's exactly what we're doing. I'm sorry, I yelled at you for interrupting me, but I'm interrupting you. But that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing the Zoom podcasts.
and it's a way to help people see that just interacting with one another. You might not be in the same room. You might, have to wear a mask. But as long as you social distance and wear that mask, you're doing your part and keeping people safe. Yet you're socializing. You can still get out there. They're saying now that if you wear that mask and you try to keep that distance, you're still able to socialize and keep people safe. So I think swimming for me is one. Going down, social distancing, of course, to the beach. There's a little small beach where we live, and sitting under a tree and watching the boats. I find that relaxing. I find painting, sketching, watching a good series. I mean, there aren't that many series that interest me on TV, but there's a few. You got to realize that a lot of these TV shows and series haven't been able to film because of COVID. So we're going to kind of be stuck in kind of a time warp with, like, say you like a show that comes on in September or whenever the fall season starts. Even they were saying something about baseball. They're going to try to fit some games in because it's not a high touch sport.
Yeah, they're doing that with wrestling too. Wrestling and hockey, they're going to be performing to empty arenas. But it's going to be broadcast on TV, but there's going to be no fans in the audience.
But what worries me a little is you get very sweaty with wrestling. I mean, I guess if you test the people right before they go into the arena, wrestling is one-on-one. But and hockey, you're really decked out in a lot of gear. So maybe that, will be okay. But I think football, there's a lot of players and a lot of, they already have players that are testing positive. So
yeah,
I don't know.
They've been doing wrestling to empty arenas for months now.
Oh, have they?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, they're having a few examples of people that came down with COVID,
but it's been relatively, everybody's got to navigate this new world of COVID, and all we can do is pray that we get this vaccine. There's several, that are in the cooker, and that everybody can stay healthy and stay well until we're able to, get through this. It's very, very, it's very difficult. I just heard something on TV, which is really disturbing, that we still are so lucky that we do not live in a communist country, because a gentleman was put in jail for life for speaking out what he thought, just speaking out what he thought about something that the government didn't agree with. You think that couldn't happen in our world, but it does.
Right, and actually, I mean, we do have freedom of speech in America, which means you can say, whatever you want. But if you have a job and you speak your mind, let's say you're a radio show and you speak your mind and you have to answer to advertisers.
Yes, you do. Yes,
that's what I mean. You have to answer to advertisers. And the advertisers, if they don't like what you say, can pull advertising from your platform. So in a way, you don't have freedom of speech because...
No, you're right. You're right. Our country is now moving more towards a socialist, communist type of...
I mean, you have to answer. You have to answer to the money, the advertisers, and I mean, they're not going to put you in jail, but you'll
lose your livelihood.
You might not be able to find work. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
yes, you're right. Unless you're independently wealthy and you've made your fortune and you've invested wisely, then you can say what you want and not worry about repercussions. But the average person, no, unfortunately, doesn't have the freedom to say what they want completely. You're right.
No. And I mean, there are exceptions. I mean, like me, for example, I'm on disability. So, I kind of have more freedom to speak my mind than somebody who's working, you know what I mean?
Yes, but again, like I said, the only way that we have to, as individuals, take our lives, our freedoms, and our protection into our own hands, because you can't trust trust anybody else to do that for you. You have to make sure that you know where you live and what the consequences are to your behaviors, because unfortunately, you know, the world today is it's hard. It's hard to navigate the world, you know, as individuals today. Everybody is trying to figure out, you know, where we're going to land as a country, as a people, and as a world. You know, it's interesting. I mean, we've covered a lot of topics today. We've covered.
I think people shouldn't be afraid to speak their minds, talk openly, honestly, and frankly, because I think there's so many phony people who are so guarded, so afraid to say certain things, and I think the world should be more. I mean, obviously, if you're saying something that's malicious and hurtful, and I mean, that's not right. But I mean, I like, especially mental health related things. I think you shouldn't be afraid.
If you're going to be harmed, or if you're going to be in a situation where you're harmed, of course you're not going to speak your mind. You're going to have that you know, you're going to keep silent, and that's a very, very toxic thing. Can you cite an example? I guess, like, if you're living in a communist country and you're afraid you're going to go to jail if you speak your mind. Also, like you said, if the supporters don't like what you have to say they're swinging one way politically and you're swinging another, and you say something that's pro your position, they can out you. They have the ability. There's the money. There's the you know. So, do you have freedom in that arena? Not really. You have to keep your opinions to yourself in a lot of ways. So, you know, but it's not just that. It's you know, you can't always go, you know, and speak your mind and say what you think. You know, it has to be within the confines of where you're speaking it and who you're speaking it to. There are confines in the country. We like to think we're free, but some of our freedom is tainted. It just is.
Yeah, but if you have money, America is the place to live. But unfortunately, money. The more money you have, the more freedom you have.
Then you can buy, and you don't have to care if somebody pulls your show or pulls your job, or then you don't have to care. But if you need that, then you have to kowtow. So that's not real freedom.
Speaking of corrupt, wealthy people, you want to get controversial? What do you think about Jeffrey Epstein? Do you think he committed suicide?
Epstein, no, I think he was murdered. And that's sad, but I do. I think corrupt, wealthy people had him murdered because I believe there was a lot of people that have a lot of money that made sure he didn't talk.
Right.
Because he could have hung a lot of people, and we know the names out there. I mean, if anybody is so stupid that they don't know who was involved, then they're stupid. But, you know, there are very, very, very famous, wealthy people that were involved. People, when they get too much money, too much power, they become perverse and sick, and they start exploiting people. They start using and exploiting people, and that becomes a real demented kind of, you're not human anymore. You become evil, in my opinion. And this evil with so much money can eventually, I believe, karma comes around and you hang yourself. Basically, it's kind of a pun there because he was found hanged. But I mean, his sick perversion landed him where it landed him. But that was only to cover what he was doing. And a lot of people in this world get away with that. And I applaud the people that try to expose these people, because what they are is filthy individuals that need to be brought down. Filthy. And, you know, and that's just my opinion. I mean, other people will say, oh no, he wasn't, but
I mean, on the contrary, you know, a lot of people say, I mean, villainize the wealthy in America, villainize the rich. But you know, actually, if you've ever found, you know, some of the more educated rich people in the world are actually a lot nicer than, you know, people that are angry and miserable. So, I mean, actually, sometimes, believe it or not, I mean, obviously there are examples where people get abusive with their power. What are you clicking? sometimes you can get abused, like get corrupt. But I think sometimes people that do have a lot of happiness in their life can be a lot kinder.
But I think that peace and that happiness comes from a spiritual, selfless perspective. I think if you're so focused on yourself and your needs, that's when you become corrupt.
Right.
I just feel that, and I think that money is a trigger to that. If you have that within you to do, money and more power and more money and more greed and more evil, it exudes from you. I think that if you have a soulful, spiritual personality, you love your family, you love your friends, you love your neighbor. I think that, and there's a religious aspect in my view. I believe that transcends you to a better place, a better life, and a better peace in your soul. I don't think anybody can find peace in their soul, whether you're rich or whether you're poor, unless you have a spirituality to you. And that's just my opinion.
Right. I know, I mean, but do you consider yourself religious? Because, I mean, you don't really go to church.
I believe in the spirituality of human beings. I believe everybody has a soul. I believe in God. But do I sometimes feel too fatigued and too overwhelmed to get myself to a quote unquote? So I believe structured religion has to mean that you're religious. No, it's how you live your life. It's how you live your life. And if you read the Bible, and if you are a Christian, or even if you're a Hindu or a Buddhist, it's still the same basic principles. It's do unto others as we would have done to ourselves, and be kind and be generous and be forgiving. And that it's all religions the true religions speak to the same thing.
A lot of people say religion was invented to make the lower and middle class feel like, give them some kind of validation, so they didn't focus on the corrupt wealthy. But I personally do believe in a spirituality. I believe I want to think there's a purpose to the existence, but some people think it was kind of done to, give, people that are suffering a sense of righteousness.
It is very, very possible that is what.
Speaking of power and control, it was kind of like people that with the was trying to. I don't know. I mean, this is just. I mean, but I hear the other argument, and it's a good community. I mean, if you don't have much going on in your life and you want to socialize, I mean, why not join a church? You can socialize, and I mean, there's really no harm in believing in God.
Even in the guise of religion, people commit atrocities.
Right. Like you say this all the time. Some of the biggest hypocrites are in the front row of church.
The front row of church. So that's why when you say church, you have to live a spiritual, peaceful, loving existence. Not just say, "Oh, I sit in the front row of church," but then I go out and I commit all kinds of crimes. And crimes against humanity, and people do that all the time. And some of it is used to trick people that are kind and sweet and gentle and maybe not as affluent. It's just, as human beings.
I found there were people from years ago. I don't want to name names, but they were almost condescending in their belief of religion, where it was kind of like they had like a sense of superiority because they believed in God, and it was kind of like.
People use all kinds of things. People that are very wealthy think that they're so cultured and they're so above or even intellectual. Somebody once told me,
you're going to hell, Andrew, because you don't believe in God, but I'm going to heaven because I'm all right. It's like this is like you're bullying me with your God thing.
Yes. Well, here is an example. Somebody that I truly, truly respected with all my heart. Very, very intelligent person once said to me, if you use your education, your financial status, your religious status, or your religious beliefs to bully or control or to humiliate another individual, then you are truly not a good person, because that's not what it's about. Being a good person and using those things to just operate, you know, in the world as trying to intimidate is not what a spirituality is all about. Having peace, inner peace, is something that we all really should strive for, because that's the only thing that fills that emptiness and that hole in us, is to find what it is that gives us that inner peace. And I truly believe that is your spirituality and your connection to a higher power. That's my belief. And I believe that individuals that try to use or intimidate, whether it be money, whether it be their education, whether it try to put other people down, they can't find that inner peace. They'll never find that inner peace if they make the things that they worship their God or their higher power. If you make those earthly things your higher power or your inner peace, you will never find it. Never. It will never come to you. So to give back and to truly love your neighbor as you love yourself, which is, to me is, all the great writers in history and all the most intelligent minds will say the same thing about human behavior and human nature. Human nature is the same throughout history. We repeat our same mistakes. We do the same things. And let's hope that this podcast will help people realize that they are loved and they are valuable and worth everything that means good things to them, and to find what it is that gives them a sense of peace. And go out there and find that. Go out, find what makes you happy, what makes you creative, what makes you feel, and don't let anyone validate who you are. Validate yourself. Mm-hmm. You do not be validated by anyone but yourself. And know that if you can find a way to fill that emptiness, fill that hole with a higher power, I truly believe, even if it's just a spiritual feeling and an entity, whatever that is for you.
Yeah, some people like find validation and purpose through art. Some people find validation and purpose through religion. Some people find it through sports. Some people find it through. But I mean, if you find the validation and purpose, I mean, that's a great thing. And
help it make you a better person. Right. If you like comedy, you like to make people laugh. Aren't you, in essence, it's making you feel validated, but it also makes somebody else smile who might have been sad that day. So that's like a vocation, because
right. And you can be a bully. Like there are bullies everywhere. So
there are bullies at every stage. So that is what it is. Be aware, but also realize that there are good people out there. Don't be afraid to experience the world, but protect yourself and know that you're the only one that validates your feelings of worth. Only you. And do the things that make you happy and smile.
Like when it comes to religion, I do want to believe there's a purpose to the existence. I do want to believe there's a God. I do want to believe good people are going to be rewarded in the afterlife. But I've experienced a lot of, negative, disgusting people that are involved in religion. Why are you talking over me? I've experienced a lot of negative people that are involved in religion, and it's kind of sour. And down deep, I believe in God, but it's kind of like a lot of negative people in the religious community have soured my opinion on religion. Do you know what I mean?
I could go that route too, because there's several people that did that to me, and very, very, but they're human beings. They're full of flaws and full of faults, and they too are trying to, they get that God complex. Remember when I talked about people of power, money, wealth, prestige, education? They too get this God-like complex that I'm above you. And if somebody does that, then they are no longer truly a spiritual person. So that's where we need to, as people, weed out who's somebody that's a healthy person to be around, and who's somebody that only brings us to a negative state. And finding that and doing that and finding things that make us happy and give us peace is what we all need to be doing, especially during times of COVID.
Yeah, I actually found people in the mental health community are a lot more empathetic. And you know, some people, I mean, in a way, you know, religion is certain people's NAMI or certain people's psychosocial clubhouse. People with similar interests, a community, and you know, that's kind of, you know, some people find it through NAMI, some people find it through the psychosocial clubhouse, other people find it through religion. But you need that community, you need that socialization. Living in a fantasy land and getting a steam, thinking celebrities know who you are, that's not how you know what I mean?
And people that have suffered, usually people that have suffered are the kindest, most spiritual people, because and have an inner essence, because they have suffered. So they want to genuinely care and help others. Sometimes there are people out there that never find that peace. They struggle their whole life and they never find that peace. They can have millions, billions, and they never find that peace. Finding that peace, to me, is the part of life that we all struggle. And I think good friends, you're lucky in your life if you have a handful of really good friends.
Do you mind if we talk frankly about mental illness, about like what was
well,
triggered?
I don't think
No. Do you want me to like frankly talk about what was triggered in me in this podcast?
No. This is not the podcast to do that. We can do that another time. I think that we covered a lot of material here today, and I think we should stay in a positive note for people that are trying to find things to make them happy today, and ways to find happiness. You know, meditation, yoga, prayer, Zooms with your friends and family, or you know, just get out there and connect and find ways.
Let's talk about like my financial dependency at the moment. That's frightening to me. Something that's frightening to me at the moment is the fact that I'm financially dependent on you. I mean, the government, you say technically, but the money goes into your name, and I don't have any money saved in the bank. I mean, I have no savings account. So
a lot of people are financially dependent on the government. A lot of people out there are financially dependent on the government, and nobody wants that. Truly, deep in the depths of them, nobody wants that. And that's what is a goal that most people should, if they can, try not to be, so they can feel that sense of, it takes that fear away.
I guess my point is, you know, right now I'm a dependent man-child, and it's okay because you're providing me with a place to live, you're providing me with, you know, comfort. But you know, will the illusion of comfort and security shatter when you go away, or
you have to make that not shatter.
I mean, obviously that's what you know, psychiatrists say. You got to make your own future. Like, realistically speaking, I should have been saving money since I was 18 years old. But do you have me protected in a way where it's kind of like, or am I living, or am I living like happily, like, oh, everything's good, and then when you.
This isn't an arena to discuss that. This is not the type of a podcast. Is not where you discuss your financial. First of all, this is a podcast to discuss different issues that people feel. That is not an arena to be discussed. That's something that you and I can have a discussion about off camera.
Right. But and then this is where the fantasies come. This is where you know what I mean.
Everybody wants to believe that they have a rich uncle that's going to leave them, you know, billions of dollars. Everybody likes that fantasy. But the reality of life is that we do the best we can with what we have, and we know that our loved ones care about us, and we move forward every day with a positive step and hopes in our heart, and that is what it is.
And just realize your parents are in the vein of your existence, and they love you very much.
And that is what it is.
That is what it is.